Incident review of drug consumption sites after a high-profile murder investigation near the one in Leslieville.
Why not put that energy into fighting for upstream solutions instead of targeting the vulnerable people that are really struggling?
Why harm reduction workers worry villainizing the centers is the wrong approach. Plus, creek contamination. More ducks and a beaver are dead after last Friday's chemical fire sends toxic sludge into Toronto waterways. How officials are racing to contain the situation before it hits Lake Ontario.
We're looking at bacon-wrapped wings.
And counting the ways you can use bacon and pickles and all the wild foods at the CNE, we've got a preview of the fair's wacky culinary creations. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. The South Riverdale Community Health Center is at the heart of controversy again tonight. The provincial government says it is starting at the Leslieville Clinic with a critical incident review of all drug consumption sites in Ontario. The new scrutiny comes following the shooting death of Caroline Huebner-Maccarat. The Leslieville mother was killed last month by a stray bullet during a gunfight not far from the South Riverdale Clinic. Yesterday, we learned an employee at the center was charged in relation to her death. Anam Khan begins our coverage tonight.
Caroline Huebner-Maccarat was shot right across the street from the South Riverdale Community Health Center. 2 arrests were made this week in connection to her death, including a harm reduction worker at the center. 23-year-old Khalila Mohammed from Pickering was charged with accessory after the fact and obstructing justice. She was featured in a CBC story on the center last February. After the shooting so close to the facility, Ontario's Minister of Health launched a critical incident review of all similar sites, starting with the one in South Riverdale. In a statement, the province said, "We are extremely troubled by this latest development and reviewing what options are available to the government." But harm reduction worker Lorraine Lamb warns instead of villainizing community health centers, policymakers should be empowering them.
Why not put that energy into fighting for upstream solutions instead of targeting the vulnerable people that are really struggling, instead of targeting the workers who are doing their best to keep the community safe?
The local councillor who's on board with keeping the supervised injection site running says when it was being set up, safety inside the facility eclipsed its impact on the neighborhood.
What I think wasn't really contemplated well enough and has to be thought through very carefully is the safety outside.
The coordinator of consumption services at Regent Park Community Health Center argues improved safety would come from legalizing street drugs.
If they had access to a more robust and more broadly funded safe supply of substances that matched what they were actually asking for, they wouldn't need to access that illicit supply. And ultimately, we would see a reduction in the associated violence and gunplay.
The province says the critical incident review is looking at policies and procedures at the site, especially around security, but didn't give a timeline for when it would be complete. Anam Khan, CBC News, Toronto.
To Christie Pitts Park now, where people gathered tonight to mark 90 years since the Christie Pitts riot. That is considered one of the darkest days in Toronto's history for the local Jewish community.
So tonight, as we play together, as we feel the love, let us remember that courage. Let us make the commitment. Let us inspire each other to say no to hate, to say that diversity is our strength, and together we are stronger.
The mayor threw out the ceremonial first pitch at tonight's softball game, part of the event dubbed the Rally Against Racism. Now, on this day, back in 1933, a riot began after a group of young men unfurled a banner with a black swastika at the park following a softball game that featured a team of mostly Jewish teenagers. That sparked an hours-long brawl. No one was killed, but it's among the worst incidents of ethnically or religiously motivated violence in Toronto's history. Now to an alleged hit and run that happened late last night near Moss Park. The homicide unit has now taken control of the police investigation. Witnesses told CBC Toronto there was a fight involving a number of people, and moments later, they said a man who was part of that altercation was struck and killed by a car that fled the scene. Ali Chiasson has the latest.
The victim lays in a live lane of traffic on Sherbourne Street just before 11 p.m. Witnesses called police, but by the time they arrived, the car that struck him was gone.
It started off as a fail to remain because the vehicle took off, but then shortly after it became a fatality because the person was pronounced deceased at the scene.
But it soon became clear to investigators that this was more than a hit and run.
We have now determined that it's a homicide investigation. As of this morning, it has been deemed homicide number 40 for 2023.
Some eyewitnesses gave us a little bit more insight into what may have happened here. They described seeing the victim in a fight with at least 2 other people. At one point, they say he looked pretty beaten up, and he lays down in a live lane of traffic. That's when that 4-door sedan, silver in color, drives up Sherbourne and hits him and drives off.
How did this person end up in the roadway to begin with? Whether the vehicle that struck this person, how were they involved? Was it that they were involved before? Or was it that it happens to be separate where it's a vehicle driving by and the person was struck and the driver took off? So all these things are more than just a hit and run that's investigated by traffic services. That's why we called in homicide.
So it's ruling out whether this was intentional or indeed an accident?
That's right, ruling all of that out, as well as whether there's criminality to it.
Who gets the homicide charge? Someone from the fight or the driver? Nobody is in custody yet. To help piece it all together, investigators are looking at surveillance camera footage from the area and talking to witnesses. Anyone with information is asked to call Toronto Police Homicide. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Dozens of people rallied outside TVO headquarters today in support of workers who are set to strike later this week.
TVO has had wages that have not risen with inflation for over a decade. So every single year they want us to make less money. And you can't do that in perpetuity, not when inflation is as high as it is now.
TVO employees are pushing not only for higher wages, but also for more permanent contracts instead of temporary work with missing health benefits and job security. The Canadian Media Guild is representing journalists, producers, and education workers who will officially go on strike this Friday. TVO says it added 20 permanent full-time positions this year, and it remains confident they will reach an agreement. The CMG trade union also represents employees here at the CBC. For the second time in 1 year, the LCBO says it has been the target of a privacy breach compromising customer information. The Crown Corporation says an unauthorized party got access to first names and email addresses of certain clients who are subscribed to its promotional emails. But the LCBO says no password or financial data was leaked, including debit and credit card details. Customers received the promotional emails from a third-party service provider called Conversion Digital. The LCBO said today it's decided to put a pause on them for now while an investigation is underway. Popping outside for a live look at the city, and it is a warm one tonight, 23 degrees right now. Colette Kennedy is joining us. And Colette, after that chilly Tuesday, today was the summer weather I was hanging on for.
Yeah, that's more like it, right, Chris? To see such a beautiful day today. Hope everyone had a chance to get out and enjoy it. You get another chance tomorrow, but with some changes coming later in the day. And this is what's going on if we just look at the afternoon temperatures from earlier today. 27 Toronto, 25 in Windsor, 27 Ottawa, and some cooler air back here to way back to the northwest of us. And that's along a cold front with an area of low pressure coming out of the Manitoba kind of eastern prairies region. As that comes in, as it makes its way, we're going to see showers and thunderstorms developing all along it, just like they did today. And so the morning's fine. Most of the day is fine around Lake Ontario, but for Lake Erie folks here, I'd say into the earlier afternoon hours, you'll see some showers and thunderstorms developing, and then into the evening, those will be riding through the GTA. Now, as for what happens behind that into Friday, you're going to have to stick around. I'll have the rest of that forecast coming up, but tonight it's clear skies, 17, 27 tomorrow, feeling like 32. Chris, a slim chance there could be an isolated shower starting in the afternoon, but most of the activity for Toronto is into the evening hours.
All right, plenty of time to enjoy the beach, I suppose. Thanks, Colette. An update tonight on the impact of the toxic runoff that's been seeping into 2 Toronto creeks since last Friday. Toronto Wildlife Centre says around 80 birds have needed treatment after becoming contaminated. The organization says 7 ducks and a beaver have died, along with many fish, and the center's teams are actively looking for more affected animals. The toxic runoff into the waterways is from a huge fire at a chemical distribution center last Friday in North Etobicoke. Ontario Conservation staff have been on site to monitor the situation, and so far provincial officials say the toxic sludge has made its way into Mimico and Humber Creeks, but not Humber River or Lake Ontario, and the municipal water supply remains unaffected. Clement Kent is an adjunct professor of biology from York University, and he's joining us now. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Hi, Chris.
So first of all, given how connected and fast-moving our waterways are, what do you think, or what do you make of the fact that the province is saying that so far Humber River and Lake Ontario are not affected by this spill?
I'd say pray for sunny weather. We don't want any thunderstorms.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean? Why are you saying pray for sunny weather?
They're using containment measures like hay bales, booms, things like that to catch the thickest stuff. If we have a strong rainfall, it's going to push the stuff downstream without the containment being able to stop it.
Okay, and why is containment such an important effort to be had at this point?
One of the reasons we really have to be careful with this stuff is the facility that burned, Brentag, stores a huge variety of chemicals. Some of them not very toxic, some of them very toxic, and some of them toxic after they've burned. We don't know yet what's in that sludge or what's gone into the water. So we really want to stop it early before it ends up, say, on the beaches of Humber Bay.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the program tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Clement Kent is an adjunct professor of biology from York University. Welcome back. The Toronto District School Board is facing criticism tonight and a complaint about how it's verifying staff at an Indigenous-focused school. As Angelina King shows us, the board is currently relying on an applicant or employee's word to self-identify as Indigenous, something that some say can cause more harm than good.
Side tap, other side tap.
Deanne Hupfield makes videos that teach people how to powwow dance.
Now let's try small kick. Small kick.
It's important to her she teach and others learn about her Anishinaabe culture, which is why she enrolled her kids at Kapapa Machakwe Wandering Spirit School.
When my children had Indigenous teachers, they were amazing. They understood the complexities in our family. They understand the curriculum.
But she's questioned the identity of a couple teachers who self-identify as Indigenous. And if they are, she's wondered whether they belong to an Indigenous community and what cultural connections they have.
We have these self-identifying people with no lived experience as Indigenous people, no connections to any living Indigenous community, and they're working at an Indigenous school leading my Indigenous children.
Hupfield says her mother was part of the 60s scoop and her grandparents went to residential schools.
There's a lot of generational trauma in my family that me and my husband have to work really hard to overcome.
Some universities in Canada have started implementing systems that verify a person's Indigenous identity. Hupfield wants the TDSB to do the same. So does Michael Peters.
For me, it was very difficult.
Peters, who is also Anishinaabe, first attended Wandering Spirit in 2017 after his family moved back to Toronto. Before that, he says he was used to being the only Indigenous kid in his class.
When you're Indigenous and you move into a huge urban area like Toronto, it's very difficult to try and stay connected to your culture.
But he says Wandering Spirit allowed him to do that. Although his experience was positive, he says he and other students had a hard time with a teacher claiming to be Indigenous who he believes was not.
It really impacted the learning of the students, and it really impacted the teaching of Indigenous peoples, because if these people aren't Indigenous, how can they really teach through an Indigenous lens?
Peters is now studying to be a teacher and wants to one day work at Wandering Spirit. He's set to do a practicum there this fall.
It's a big problem.
Métis Indigenous rights lawyer Jean Taillé wrote a report on the issue, which estimates there are tens of thousands of people in Canada misrepresenting their Indigenous identity.
There's a great deal of harm attached to this. It's got massive effects on everything that's going on in our educational institutions and in policy that government is forming, and it always seems to work to the disadvantage of Indigenous people.
The TDSB says it's in the early stages of developing a procedure that would take into consideration a staff member's identity that would also be informed by Indigenous communities. It also says that the Parent Council at Wandering Spirit provides input when it comes to the interview questions for those applying to work at the school. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's get back to Colette. And Colette, you were teasing us with that Friday forecast earlier in the show, but I bet many people are hanging on to hear what the weekend is expected to look like.
Yes, I did say we'd take a look at Friday, but of course the weekend's going to be in there, Chris. You know I've got that for you. Let's go ahead and show you a few things here. The heads up for Thursday, it's in the afternoon hours from Windsor through Chatham-Kent towards London, and that's going to be more of an evening hour situation as you get closer to Hamilton earlier evening and Toronto probably after 6, perhaps even after 7. Then behind that, it will be cooler on Friday, but that weekend, things turn around, starting to come right back up with those temperatures Saturday and much more humidity as we go into Sunday. And you may not want to know this, but I hope you take this in a positive light. We still got 5 more weekends of summer. That's this one coming up, still 4 more after that. I know it's a little different if you're thinking about back to school or meteorological fall, which starts September 1, but really until we get to fall, September 23rd, we still got time to enjoy this. It's a good thing this weekend coming up is going to be one with weather to go along with it. All right, here's what's coming in then tomorrow along that cold front. Those showers, thunderstorms, could be some heavier downpours, even some small hail. More of a chance of that in southwestern Ontario, 2 p.m. pushing through Windsor, Chatham-Kent, London as you get to 4 to about 6, and that's why I said later evening, likely before it's crossing from Hamilton around towards, say, Burlington, Mississauga, Toronto, on towards Pickering, and then into eastern Ontario. As for Friday, we are looking at some cloud cover and some isolated showers left behind along with cooler air, but look where that line will be. It's quite possible, maybe even Brampton, that you're in sun, but downtown Toronto's in some cloud cover. So it's going to be one of those things where the further west you are, the more sunshine you'll have. We will break into that sun, though, into the weekend as high pressure builds in. Now look at those temperatures as they fall overnight, and then by 8 a.m. back up to 18, and you'll be at 19 for Windsor. 27 tomorrow, feeling like about 32. Wet weather later in the day. The cooler day Friday, you see it there, and then that build up with that hazy, hot, humid air coming on Sunday, Chris.
Yikes. All right, we'll be ready. Thank you. Finally tonight, I know that it's late, but I hope that you've still got an appetite. And if you don't, you may or may not develop one after watching our CNE food preview. The culinary creations at the annual fair often have a way of being more shocking than anything else. Greg Ross takes us on the taste test.
The carnival food, one of the CNE's guilty pleasures. There are no healthy options here. It's all about indulgence, particularly on Media Day when unsuspecting reporters are expected to eat all of this food. But this year, this reporter is going to earn those calories. So Gerald, there's a lot of calories here.
There is.
And I feel like we've got to burn some of those calories before we eat this food. So you want to do some push-ups with me? 20 push-ups.
20 push-ups. 20 push-ups. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 19, 20.
Let's try some food.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here?
We're looking at bacon-wrapped wings.
Somebody once said to me, bacon is kitchen duct tape.
Hey, you know what? That's absolutely right. There's nothing you can't add it to that it won't fix right up.
This is the hot lime wrapped in bacon. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a chicken wing wrapped in bacon. I mean,
It only makes things better.
It's all good. So it's the king of curds, and this is a different take on cheese curd.
Yeah, it's the Yabba Dabba curds. It's deep fried cheese curds topped with fruity pebbles and a cereal milk glaze.
Here we go. That's different. These are corn dogs, but they're not normal corn dogs.
Correct. These are corn dogs with the addition of peanut butter chips, chocolate chips.
I'm gonna need your help for a sec.
Absolutely.
Can you hold my mic? Peanut butter. There's actually a hot dog in there.
Correct, it's a corn dog.
I thought the dog was not gonna be there. There's peanut butter in there with a hot dog.
Correct.
And chocolate.
Correct.
Every year there's some weird ice cream concoction, and you guys have outdone yourself. What is this?
This is cheeseburger ice cream. So we've taken a waffle cone, we've dunked it in nacho cheese, sprinkled with sesames, with a barbecue ice cream.
So Mo, what do we got here?
So we have San Francesco's Holy Moly Cannoli. It's veal, cheese, and pomodoro stuffed in a custom-made jumbo cannoli with garlic aioli, sweet and salty hickory sticks on top, and little sprinkles for the CNE.
All right, Mo, I've been trying to earn my snacks here today. Are you willing to do some jumping jacks with me today before we try this?
Sure.
So it's a cannoli.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm wearing a bunch of it. What are you guys doing here?
So we have deep fried O. Henry.
I have 7,000 calories in me right now. I got to burn off some.
Oh my God!
Tastes like a deep fried O. Henry bar.
Oh, that's what it is.
He laughed, he worked out, he ate. I just love it. And I still want that bacon-wrapped chicken wing. I think that looked like the best of the bunch. That's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Farah Morelli has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and Angelina King will be here with you at 11 tomorrow night. Have a great evening.